books that are left in the Bible. Okay. Okay. Sometimes that happens. I'm not done yet, so. There's no reference of those things in the Bible, but that doesn't mean that they're not true. Also, there was a change in the year 529, you can look this up in Google, that on December 25th, the state of Rome declared that to be a sacred holiday. So that after that time, we worship the popes and the rulers of the state of Rome as holy and divine figures. And all other souls were said to be created only at the time of birth. Before that, it was taught that we lived with God and we were divine beings. Following that, we no longer had the benefit of being divine holy creatures. Only beings who ruled the state of Rome were considered to be holy. Everybody else was just an ordinary soul. And we worshiped that day, had nothing to do with Christ. Ever since that time, Jesus was added much later than that. Didn't start with Jesus, it actually started with the state of Rome. Except most people don't know that. While I'm talking, does anybody know where the holiday of Easter comes from? Okay? I'm sorry, stand up, say that?
It comes from Hathor, the birth of Osiris, Hathor was present.
Okay, that is one of the origins. There's another origin. That is certainly one. Anybody know of the other origin? Yes?
Yeah, it comes from Ishtar, wasn't that one of those pagan gods or something like that?
It comes from a goddess by the name of Easter. Her name was O-E-S-T-R-E. The goddess Easter. Her holiday was the first full moon after the spring equinox. Her sacred animal was the rabbit. When you worship the goddess Easter, children hid Easter eggs and they were given candy in celebration of her holiday. It had nothing to do with Jesus. As a result, we still celebrate that holiday at the same time in the same way without really knowing why. It had nothing to do with the resurrection. That holiday has been celebrated for thousands of years before Jesus. If we don't know our spiritual history, we can't move forward with our spiritual growth. Because in many ways, we end up giving our spiritual power away to what something is called psychic entities. A psychic entity is a spiritual force that we're taught to worship, usually as children, that takes on a form and a life of its own. A thought form is an entity that originates from the human mind and nothing else. Thought forms exist around us quite a lot. For instance, if I throw out a name, Tarzan, everybody knows what Tarzan is. Tarzan never existed. But all of us have seen Tarzan on TV, in movies and in books. If I say the X-Men never existed. But someone made billions of dollars off the thought form of the X-Men. Thought forms can become things in order to be able to survive. We quite often get requests from young people who have sex with invisible beings. Has anybody ever heard of anybody who had that problem? A number of hands come up. And I remember we just did a radio show talking about some of this. These invisible beings will come to you in your bed at night or in your dreams, and they will be the best looking, most sexy, suave, Rico Suave looking person you could imagine. But they're not people. They're thought forms, they're psychic entities. The spiritual name for them are incubus and succubus. An incubus is a being that will have sex with you, or a succubus, simply to draw your energy from you. It's not a good thing to have intercourse with them, because once they draw the energy from you, they recognize that they can continue to draw energy from you. Then you become a target. It can cause difficulties with relationships because they get jealous when you sleep with a normal person. They can also cause you to be suicidal. They can also drain energy to such extent you become mentally or emotionally unbalanced. Usually that's when I see a person like that. Energies that are associated with attaching spirits are associated with a substance that we call ectoplasm. Ectoplasm is a smoky-looking material that sometimes only shows up on a picture. Has anybody taken a picture and seen those little orbs or that smoky image that you see here? How many people have seen this on pictures? Ectoplasm is the energy that gives us life. Everybody has ectoplasm inside your body. When you take in a breath, you breathe in life force from the oxygen and the other elements around, and it feeds the ectoplasm in your body. Whenever your body dies, the energy of the soul leaves with the ectoplasm, and we call that the state of death. Ectoplasm is what your ghost is made of. Ectoplasm is the energy that gives a ghost substance. It's also the energy that gives those little orbs that you see, these pictures, these orbs here. How many people have seen these in pictures? They're showing up more and more because cameras are getting better. Cameras are able to detect the presence of these entities which have been there. They're not new. We just couldn't take pictures of them before as easily. Because now it's not uncommon for a camera to have 10, 12, or 15 megapixel resolution. Well, when I was a kid, it was unusual for a camera to have more than 1, 2, or 3 megapixel resolution. Now we can see the ectoplasmic forms of people who have passed on. That's what you're looking at when you see these. It's not just a smudge on your camera. There have been books written about these that show faces inside the ectoplasmic ball. I have a picture of a little baby floating above its mother's womb. The mother's about 6 months pregnant, and you see the baby's face in an ectoplasmic ball floating in front of the woman. Well, that's the baby she's carrying. Babies often will follow the mother up until about 1 or 2 weeks before its birth, and after that time period, it will gradually begin to settle into the mother's womb. Before that, it's connected to the infant or the fetus by a cord, and that's how the cord baby gets its life energy. There are a number of different types of these spirits that we can talk about. And there are a number of different classes. Just as a general point of discussion, some spirits are very filmy looking. They don't have a very solid appearance. Some appear to be partially visible, and some you can't see at all. You can only see them on films or videotapes. There are some spirits that are called historical apparitions. If you go to a place like Gettysburg or Antietam, which are very famous Civil War battle sites, you can take a picture sometimes of soldiers that are standing around with guns. You can see pictures of cannons. And if you sleep near there at night, which we've had some clients do, they will see these people walking around, sometimes in troops or regiments, and you can hear gunshots, you can hear cannons being fired, and you wake up in the morning and it's totally quiet. Those are called historical or recurring apparitions. Because in some cases, if an event is intense enough, it will make a scar on a place. And that scar can be like a recurring movie image. On a boat, a very famous boat called the Queen Elizabeth II, which is docked just outside of Los Angeles, it's one of the most famous places for spirits who are a recurring type. If you take your video camera on there, you can see spirits walking around. You can see them going back and forth. You can see them sitting at tables eating. Because there were a number of, let's just say, very bad things that happened on that boat that got covered up. There are also things called crises or family apparitions. I dated a young lady once in Philadelphia who had an aunt, and the aunt had twins. And one of the twins died. It was a little girl, had 2 little girls. And the twin that had died, after the funeral 2 weeks later, just started coming to the house. She was solid. She would play with her little sister all day. She would need to be changed. She would eat, she'd go to the bathroom. At the end of the day, she says, I have to go now. And then she would go back and walk through the wall. This happened for 6 years. She would not appear when family was being visited by people from the outside. She would not appear to anybody who was a stranger. She would only appear when the family was there. And it was like this family thing they had between them. They thought they were crazy. But the little girl grew up. They bought her clothes. She didn't go to school. She could only be in that house. And when she got close to puberty, she said, I can't come back anymore. I'm too old. I have to stay on the other side. And then she left and never came back. That's a good example of what's called a family apparition. A ghost that only appears to certain members of family. This is a good video. How am I doing on time? Okay, good. About the state of death. In many ancient cultures, you got taught about death as much as you did about a job or relationships or anything. What are we mostly taught about the state of death? Somebody give me an example. It's final, that's right. Yes. Or hell. Anything else? Yes.
We're supposed to cry.
We're supposed to cry for them, that's right. Anything else? That's right. Yes.
No coming back.
That's right. Well, what happens if a person dies, they don't see heaven, they don't see hell, they don't see the light, and they still have consciousness? That happens more than 3 out of 4 times when a person dies. We're not taught what to do then. If you don't see the white light, which we're supposed to see, this tunnel, if we don't see Jesus or Muhammad or Buddha or Moses or whoever, if you don't see another existence other than what you're walking around in, what do you do then? That's part of what I call our poor spiritual education. We're not taught. As a result, most of the time when a person passes, they walk around earth because they don't know where to go. What do you do when you wake up and you see your body sitting there? How do you know if you're living or dead? How do you know? Yes?
You try to talk to anybody else and they're not talking to you.
They could just be asleep.
On the third dimension. But you can't sleep forever in that state.
That's true.
So therefore, some level of awareness has to come.
There are 3 things that you have to test for to see if you're living or dead. Let's see how good you are. We're going to do a little bit of spiritual education. What do? You wake up and you're not sure if you're dreaming or asleep and you look over at your body. This is going to happen to all of us. How do you test? Yes?
Is it in spirit form?
Yes, if you're a spirit form, well, basically if you're a living person, or if you're a dead person.
Try to fly.
Try to fly, okay. That could just say that you're a dreaming person. Yes.
Could you try to get back into the body? Or
Okay,
get back
good.
into the body?
What will happen if you're living and you try to get back in the
If
body?
you're living, you'll go back inside, I would think.
You can if you're living.
Back inside.
You can also go back in if you're dead. Yes, you can.
You wouldn't awake.
You wouldn't wake up, that's right. You wouldn't wake up. You can go back in your body if you're dead. Not anything there, but you can go back in there. Yes.
Try to take a deep breath and breathe.
Very good. You can try to take a deep breath. Nothing will happen. You can go back in your body. If you try to take a breath, you can't draw a breath. But that's not one of the 3 big tests. But that's a very good one. You can't take a breath. Yes?
Eat something.
Can't eat. I'll give you one of them. You can't see yourself in a mirror if you're dead. There's no reflection. Why is that? If you're a living person, if you have a three-dimensional form, your shadow is going to be a two-dimensional image, which is a flat surface, so you can see that flat surface as a reflection in the mirror. If you're looking as a second-dimensional entity, there's no substance to your form. So your reflection is going to be a one-dimensional form, which is a point. You can't see that. So if you look in the mirror, there's nothing going to look back at you if you're dead. If you're living, you still have some life substance in your astral form. You can see that. But if you're dead, there's no life substance in your astral form. You can't see it. So that's one test. Yes?
What about harming yourself?
Harming yourself.
Trying to harm yourself, like trying to jump down the window or something.
You can do that.
So,
Over and over and over. And a lot of ghosts do that. They jump, they try to kill themselves, they try to cut their wrists. Do it over and over and over. They look at the wrist and it's cut, but they still cut it. I'll give you another test. Water. If you passed on and you touch water, it'll give you a shock. Because water has a different polarity and energy resonance in a living form than it does in a form who is dead. So if you touch water and you're a dead person, you'll get a shock. If you touch water and you're just in your dreaming body, nothing happens. Yes?
Now, how do you come to know that?
How do I come to know that? I like that question. When I was a little boy, I had an experience of being in the kitchen with my grandmother about 4 o'clock in the morning. And she would cook for people. And I would wake up and I'd smell, my grandmother was an awesome cook. She would make smothered ham and biscuits with gravy and grits every morning. And she would take these ham hocks and cook them. And I said, well, Grandma, why do you cook so early? Nobody's up yet. And I said, well, where do these people come from you're cooking for? And I learned that the people she was cooking for were dead people. One of them was my Uncle Sam, who had died and had been dead for a few days before anybody found his body. Well, I'd seen my Uncle Sam eating at my grandmother's table when he was dead in his house. I'd sat on his knee. I heard him go to the bathroom taking a leak. I heard that. I saw that. I had been interacting with dead people for years before I knew that they were dead. Dead people will teach you a lot if you sit down with them. I've sat down with thousands of people who have passed on. They teach you things. One of the things that they teach me that has been probably for me one of the most important is there is no spiritual education about the process of death. There is no spiritual education about what really happens in the next life. What's important to understand about the next world is it looks almost exactly like this world. Quite often, they don't know when they've passed. They learn about water pretty quick because you get thirsty. So they have to figure out, well, how can I take a drink? The other test that they learn about is animals. When a dead person's around an animal or is in the room with an animal that the animal doesn't know, that animal freaks out. That animal will not stay in a room with a dead person that it does not know. That's one of the other tests. They learn how to avoid animals. They learn how to drink. How do you think they drink if they can't touch water?
Evaporated water.
They learn to take the essence of water. So if they see water in a glass, all they have to do is hover around the glass and they can take the essence of water through their bodies. They can't drink it, but it's enough to sustain them. That's why on many ancestor altars from the past, you would have to place a bowl of water, a pitcher of water for your ancestors. They could come and take a drink from it. If they were alcoholics, they quickly learned that if they hung around a bar, they could get a drink. Because people often just left their glasses sitting on the bar. So so they could hover around that glass and get a quick shot. They also learned that if a person drank a lot, that person was easy to occupy or possess. And then they could take over that person. And they could drive their car. They could pick a person they like from the audience or the crowd and take them home with them. And that person would wake up the next day, who are you? How did I get here? They call it a blackout. It's not a blackout. In some cultures, they would say that that person rode you home. And when you wake up, they're not there, they're sitting back laughing because they're looking at you, looking at them, looking at this person you just slept with, and they're on to the bar for the next person that comes along. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes.
One of the reasons that people attach to us is before revenge. Entities often are angry that they are dead. They don't like the fact that they can't go into their bodies and draw a breath. That's one of the most shocking things to a ghost. They don't like the fact that people are around them having fun and enjoying life, and they can't enjoy their earthly desires. They also miss their children. They want to be around their children. So they will often attach to a home or to their business. Another reason they attach is for karmic attachments or karmic reasons, which means that they have unfinished business. There are things that they wanted to do in life that they didn't finish. They didn't get that college degree. They didn't buy the car they wanted. They didn't finish the marriage they wanted, or they didn't say goodbye to certain people. So they come back to try to finish those things, often through us. Quite often, if a person has poor health, an entity will see them as an opportunity for attachment. If a person has cancer or heart disease or some other life-threatening illness, that person becomes someone that can become a person that is attached to. And usually, as a person ages and gets in poor health, they start building up attaching entities for those reasons. Also, spirits quickly recognize that they don't know much about the afterlife. One of the things that makes spirits the angriest is the problem with debt in the afterlife. If you die in this world and you have debt, that's not the end of the story. People learn that pretty quickly. There are entities that will assess your soul at the time of your passing to see how much debt you have. And that debt will quite often then be assessed, and you'll be given credit against that debt. But when you come back into the next world, to your next life, well, the fact that you have debt, for that entity becomes something that they call a bull, which is a B-U-L-L. And a karmic bull is like a note that they attach to your soul. And if you don't pay that off, they will take the money from your descendants. So your descendants will be going on in life, work, and all of a sudden they'll get a "you're fired" notice. Or they'll be driving along down the road and all of a sudden they'll have an accident. Or they'll be walking, minding their own business, getting money in the bank, somebody will rob them. All of a sudden there'll be a sudden reversal of their fortune because those bulls will be called in by those entities. And because the ancestor died in debt and didn't repay the bull, they start taking it from the descendants. And because that money is taken from the descendants, it becomes a habit in that family that the family doesn't progress in life. The family becomes a family that is chronically poor or chronically doesn't have the ability to move forward. And that unfortunately happens quite often with our people because a lot of our ancestors die in debt. They don't know how to pay back that entity or that money, and as a result, one person dies in debt, another person dies in debt. Before you know it, the whole family can't move forward. Another form of spiritual slavery uses elementals. An elemental is a kind of entity that is formed from one element. And elemental objects such as necklaces or rings are sold all over the world in order to give people spiritual power. People in power in this world, people that own corporations, that run governments, that have military power, most of the time they didn't just get there because they were very competent at their jobs. Usually they had help. There's an old saying that millionaires don't hire astrologers and psychics. Billionaires do. That is true. That when people have spiritual power in the world, it often translates into temporal power in the world, power in government, power in the military. And quite often you'll see people in these positions carrying around objects that look kind of weird. And some of these objects hold entities that give this person power. Most people don't know that our president has an amulet or talisman to the god Hanuman that he carries in his pocket. Many presidents had spiritual talismans. Many world leaders carry spiritual talismans on their bodies that give them spiritual power. This is a ring that carries a succubus. A succubus is a sexual entity. Now, why would a person want to carry a succubus around them?
So that they can send it on other people or draw that person's energy at their opposition.
A succubus can be a very enchanting entity. It can make that person the most charismatic, fun-loving person you ever wanted to be around. And because of the power of the succubus, you want to hug that person, you want to listen to them, you want to elect them, you want to make sure that in their company you support them without really realizing why. A lot of the times it's because of these entities that they carry with them. So what are some of the problems that are caused by attaching spirits? More than 80% of the time, all the illness and suffering in our world is related to entities. There are people that are born immortal and have lived because of that for thousands of years, if not tens of thousands of years. And there are people that are known as half immortals, which means that they look just like you and I, but when they die, a process kicks in that triggers a sort of immortality that allows them to live for thousands of years, and then they pass. And then there are beings called true immortals. True immortals are beings that are more like gods than they are regular humans. And they are beings that just appear seemingly out of nowhere. Now this sounds like science fiction, but it happens to be true. And these beings who are immortals, who are very old, are beings that understand the spiritual laws. They understand the laws of money. They understand the laws of politics. They understand military laws. They understand emotion. They understand mental ideas and ideology. And they're old enough that they can use their understanding of those laws to control all of us. A lot of the people that are in power in this world now were in power 2,000 years ago. Those people, when we hear a report of a lot of those people when they pass, quite often they have closed casket ceremonies. You never get to see the body. And then 20 years later, all of a sudden this new political star comes up out of the blue. You never heard of him, but now that person is rapidly Secretary of State and chairman of this and that. 10 years after that, they're president. You never heard of him. But since we don't question the nature of reality, what we're really seeing is one of the laws of reincarnation enacting itself. That person who is an immortal has just put himself back in power, or being placed back in power by the people who are also immortal around them. So, like you're saying, a very intuitive understanding. There are cycles of power and energy that go on around us, but because we don't look behind the surface, because we're busy paying off debt and getting a job and dealing with divorces and dealing with crazy Uncle Jack, we don't look at the realities of things that are going on around us. And as a result, those things can take place over and over and over again, and before you realize it, you're controlled by the same person over and over and over. That's how that sort of thing can happen. Now, I might have just made all that up. I read it in the comic books. Or not. Yes.
In Star Trek, there was a being called Q, who was part of the Immortals.
The continuum. A self-generated race of beings that control reality. One of my teachers once taught me that reality is sometimes not as strange as fiction, and that fiction can be stranger than reality. And part of your job, Mitch, is to figure out which one of those statements is true. That's the crux of what I do in my spiritual journey. I try to figure out what is reality and what is fiction. And more often than not, I find that there's a line between the two that is more blurred than solid. And so when I have students and when I work with students in my classes, the first thing I ask them to do is to develop an open mind. Because spiritual ignorance and a closed mind work well together. There are things that go on in our world that if you open your mind to the reality of things that go on around us, you learn more quickly. And it's called the human body of light. It's called the human body of light. Each of us has the capacity to be immortal, to return to the source, to transform into energy. And it's one of the greatest secrets about humanity that has ever been discovered. In ancient Egypt, the Pharaoh was considered to be a god. Not like other people, but a god. In many ancient cultures, the ruler of that culture was considered to be a god who ascended into heaven not as a physical person, but as a god. In the Christian religion, Jesus died, rose, and how did he go back into heaven? As an ascended being made out of light. When Buddha transformed from being a normal person to an enlightened being, he transformed into a body of light. He then descended back into his physical form and lived out his 80 years. But in his Buddha body, he was immortal. In every culture in this world, there is a teaching about the immortal nature of humans. That each of us has the capacity to change from being a physical person into an immortal person.
While alive?
Yes, while alive. The book of the Cathars, which was called the Book of Maori, written in the 12th century AD, was essentially a handbook that taught people how to transform into light. And people that sang a certain liturgy called the Song of Maori, M-A-R-I, when they sang the song a certain number of times, they began to glow, they began to be able to have the gift of flight, they began to be able to not eat, not drink water, and they transformed into energy and became like Christ. And the Cathars developed millions of followers around this, and they became the biggest religion in Europe, bigger than the Catholic religion. And guess what happened? The Catholic religion declared war on the Cathars. And when they declared war on the Cathars, guess what it started? It started something called the Inquisition. The Inquisition started because the Catholic Church wanted to wipe out anybody who showed any signs of immortality. If you could fly, if you had a glow around you, if you had telepathy, if you had any psychic ability, if you showed any sign of evolution, what did they call it? Witchcraft. And they killed millions of people before they could complete the process of immortality. Not because they were witches, but because they wanted to wipe out the practice or the understanding of human evolution to the point of immortality. And as a result of that Inquisition, we're now afraid of spiritual power. We're now afraid of the concept of immortality. We're afraid of our own spiritual potential because we're afraid that somebody's going to come to your house in the middle of the night and drag you out and burn you or take you out of your job. That doesn't happen anymore, but because the Inquisition went on for so long, it's planted in our consciousness to be afraid of spiritual growth. The Knights Templar stood up against the church. How many people have heard of the Knights Templar? Everybody know what that is? Okay. And they protected the Book of the Maori. They figured out how to use the Book of the Maori in order to turn water into wine and to turn base elements into gold, and also how to achieve a form of immortality. The Catholic Church labeled the Templars public enemy number 1. And On October 13th, which is a Friday, they stormed all the Templar strongholds and killed their master, Jacques de Molay, and banned them as heretics for teaching immortality. Ever since then, we look at October the 13th, a Friday, or any Friday the 13th, as a bad day, without really knowing why. But the human soul and the human body have the potential to become immortal. And every year, there are people that practice a type of immortal technique called the Dzogchen technique, which allows over 100,000 people per year to transform into light. D-Z-O-G-C-H-E-N. Dzogchen. It's a type of Tibetan Buddhism. You say them long enough, your body starts to glow. You give up food, you don't need food or water. Then your body starts to disappear and transforms into light. It's a science. It's not a metaphysical thing, it's a science. And it works. One of the reasons that China invaded Tibet was to stamp out that practice. The first target of China when they invaded Tibet was not the Tibetan government. It was the temples. They destroyed thousands of temples, and they also deliberately looked for thousands of caves where these Tibetan priests were practicing dark retreat or transforming their followers into light. They didn't go in to stamp out the government. They went in to stamp out dark retreat or the immortality process. That's why the world stood by and let them do it. They attacked the temples and the holy places first, where this was practiced. Because this world is controlled by beings that know better than most people how to control it. We'll take one more question and then we'll stop. It becomes my responsibility for what you do. The best thing that you can do for drugs is to practice a dharani every day in front of your altar. Also to place food on your spiritual altar for your ancestors. And also to play a prayer that we have called the miracle prayer at night while you go to sleep, and pray for a person that you're concerned about with a drug problem. The energy of that prayer will travel to that person and affect them. And they will sometimes say, stop doing what you're doing, I want to get high. But you just keep doing it. And it will ultimately begin to affect their use of it. Yes. You just have to sign up. The question was, how do you become a student? We used to go through a long, drawn-out process of screening people. We don't do that anymore. We find that if a person does the work, you'll screen yourself. So we accept everybody that applies, and then we just work with them as far as they're willing to work with us. I couldn't hear you. You can put a cross in your water, or you can pray over the water and put salt around the water so that negative entities won't come into it. Salt, especially sea salt or rock salt, protects the energy of the water so negative entities can't get into it. Has anybody ever heard of the practice, last question, anybody ever heard of the practice of using black salt? What is black salt? Yes.
Salt covered in soot.
Not soot, iron filings. If you place iron filings in salt and you put it around a dwelling, negative entities can't go into that dwelling because they can't cross a barrier protected by black salt. Iron filings mixed, half iron filings, half salt.
Sea salt or regular salt?
Any kind of salt. Sea salt works, regular salt works, but if you pour it in a continuous unbroken circle around the dwelling once, and then you let it just sit there, negative entities can't enter the dwelling. Now, before you do that, it's better to clear the dwelling. Because if you pour it before you clear the dwelling, what have you done? That's right, you've trapped the negative entities inside the dwelling, so clear it before you protect it. We'll take one more, then we'll stop. Take one more here. You? Yes.
Clear the energy with like smudging, practice smudging.
We have a number of products that are perfect for clearing spaces of negative entities. One product is called Spirit Attachment Remover. You just play it in the area, and it will help clear negative entities out of the area. Another